Welcome to my basement, everybody. We have done something a little bit different today. We've come out of the basement, which is always a treat, and we have a treat as a guest. This is Siobhan Williams. We haven't seen her on the show in a long time. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really well.
It's good to see you.
Thanks. It's good to see you too, Vic. It's been a few years.
Yeah, the last time we had Siobhan on the show was when we were doing EP Live at the Vancouver Film School, which was a blast in a very different type of setting. Lots of things have happened in the world since then. Have you been able to keep busy? Have you been acting? Have you been out there doing all kinds of fun stuff in the face of COVID and all the changes that we've had?
Yeah, I got really fortunate that right before COVID hit, I was asked to do a video game that was not the video game we were speaking about last time.
Yeah.
But that kept me going for a few years through COVID, which was really nice. And then
what game was that?
That was called the Quarry.
Yeah.
It was a supermassive game. It was kind of like I think they called it the spiritual successor to Until Dawn, which was a big, kind of like their flagship game, I guess. And then after that, I did another indie game called the Chant. So I had some video game work to get me through COVID.
That's awesome. Did the work on the Quarry lead to the Chant, or were they just totally separate auditions? And
it probably helped. I actually don't know if it helped with the Chant. It probably did.
Yeah.
The Quarry was actually an offer. I didn't end up auditioning for that one, which was really nice.
That's
as
lovely.
An actor.
Yeah, that's great.
Always very enjoyable when that happens. But the Chant was an audition. It's funny how that happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was the experience on both of those games pretty much the same? Performance capture and stuff, or different vibe?
Totally different. The Quarry was like kind of state-of-the-art software. Like we filmed or we recorded at Digital Domain in LA, and that studio is behind all sorts of crazy games and whatnot. Like they did all the Avengers movies and
wild
and things. So their volume is like total state-of-the-art volume. Huge facility. You walk through there and it's like, oh, there's paraphernalia from different movies they've worked on. It's like, oh, there's the Titanic, which they contributed on, and they developed this whole new software that I don't fully understand. I maybe did for a second.
Yeah.
To help with facial recording.
Yep.
And
that was all James Cameron's set up in there, wasn't he? Was he involved in launching that studio? I don't know if he's still involved.
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's still involved, but I think that he was I don't want to speak out. I don't actually know, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I remember hearing that. You would know better than me,
Yeah.
probably. So that was super cool. Like, did this crazy scanning where I sat in basically an illuminated sphere that completely surrounded me, and these thousands of little lights trigger in different patterns, and it measures how the light could hit your face in every single possible way, so they
Wild.
can simulate any lighting setup imaginable.
That's great.
By the end of what we were doing, like, we could see ourselves in real time in what's called live link. So we'd be like walking around the volume, and I'd see a mini me within the scene, like the exact setting that they had created within game. So you could be like, okay, if I stand right here, I'm looking out a window. If I stand right here, I'm like in front of a bed, or like whatever, which is super helpful as an actor. And there was even by the end, it was so cool, my character had a flashlight a few times, and there was just this like piece of rebar with sensors on it, and if I lifted it, I could see myself lighting the set at the same, and that just blew my mind. I was like, I'm literally illuminating the set with this like piece of metal that I'm just holding in real life in this gymnasium. It was so weird.
That's awesome. That's so cool. What's it like to play the game and see you in the finished product? Because I know you've done some streaming, and you've tested this out with your friends and stuff that also worked on it. What's it like for you?
It's funny. Like, I always find there's a bit of a disconnect. If I'm watching myself, it doesn't really feel like it's me.
Yeah. Even though it so closely represents you.
Yeah.
It embodies you, right? It's totally you in there.
Totally. I mean, even when I watch like something that's like a film project that I've done, and it's literally like photoreal me, I'm just kind of like, I don't know. It doesn't really feel like me. But one time that it really hit me was like I came across this compilation of like Laura, which is my character's name, like Laura Gorius deaths or something on the Quarry. And it was like 12 deaths that I hadn't seen. that I'd acted, but I hadn't seen in the game because I haven't played the game 12 times.
Yeah.
But like some of them were really gruesome, and I watched it and I felt so nauseous. There's like somewhere I get decapitated and like my spine is sticking
Oh no,
out.
you don't want to see that.
No, I was like, okay, this doesn't feel right.
Oh God.
But beyond that, like it's a bit weird to see, like if I'm playing with other people, to see them controlling me walking around and stuff. I'm kind of like, that's my body.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Oh man.
But yeah, it's cool.
Did you make it out to London to meet the Supermassive people at all, or?
No, I wanted to last year when I actually got nominated for a BAFTA for my performance, which was really, really cool.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
Thanks
great.
so much. Not to be like, hey. But they asked to fly me out and go to the awards and, you know, meet everybody at Supermassive. And I really wanted to, but I was in the middle of shooting a pilot and I couldn't get away.
Oh.
So I missed my opportunity. Which
Oh,
is too
what a
bad.
drag.
Yeah.
But the game was successful. Is there talk of more? Is there talk of a sequel or spin-offs or anything?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to sort of take it as it comes.
Yeah.
The Chant was made here in Vancouver. I know it's a much smaller scale budget, a smaller team. I went and visited those guys.
Oh, nice.
And I played a little bit of the game, and I'm like, that's Siobhan. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah? You
I
figured
was
it out?
Yeah. I was
Nice.
like, it was amazing, though. That's so cool. But
Thanks.
that must have been a little bit more. What, did you film or record all your stuff at their space, or what?
Yeah.
You did. Okay, so you went to their studio.
Yeah, so that totally different, like indie kind of guerrilla style,
Yep.
which was also super fun. A whole new learning curve. That's the thing. Like you can learn a lot about motion capture and performance capture, but it's so different every single time you do it.
Yeah.
Based on the project, you're always having to adapt. So, like in that studio, for example, I think we had a hexagon that was like maybe 6 feet in diameter.
Yep.
And that was the motion capture volume.
Right.
Whereas before we'd had, I don't know, like 40,000 square feet or something insane, right?
Yeah.
So you basically could enter and land in the volume, and then within that it had to be like very, very contained movements. Not the same thing as being able to like run at great length around a
So a bit of a theater to film kind of analogy
Yeah.
in a way, right?
Totally.
And Digital Domain, you have free roam of the stage when
Yeah.
you're, I forget the name of the studio that did the Chant.
brass token.
Brass Token. It's like you're inside of a tiny film set.
Yeah.
And you can't move as much as you want to. But
Exactly.
skills you've picked up from your film work and
Yeah.
from your stage work,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
It's so applicable.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've been at this now, acting in front of the camera and in these performance capture environments. Is it evolving and changing for you? Or is it a different thing every single time you go out for a gig at this stage?
I feel like it's definitely a bit of both. Like my first motion capture gig I worked on for almost 3 years, and even in that time period, I think that started in like 2014 or 15.
Right.
Even in that time, the technology was changing so rapidly. And then with the Quarry, it was crazy to just enter this whole world of like, you know, newly developed tech. And see that like from the beginning to end of that project, which was I guess 2.5 years again.
Yeah.
Things were changing, and
Wow.
then with the Chant, it was like a big change again. So I don't know. I think it's constantly like it really depends on the parameters of the game, and also how much the voiceover is recorded as you're doing the performance capture. And like I know, for example, for the Chant, we did. We recorded all the audio at the same time as the motion capture recording, but they had issues with the audio, so we went and had to ADR the entire game after, which was like really, really challenging. But there's just things like that.
Because your script is that big.
It was very big, and also like I think that, it was just, you're never gonna get quite the same performance.
Right.
But I'm really happy now that like for the most part, motion capture, it's like it's all recorded at the same time, because you're just gonna get a way more.
I mean, I don't know if everybody kind of understands that. I mean, it's so analogous to filmmaking at this point, isn't it? It's, and even though it's interactive and you're playing those moments, it's all recorded as if it's a linear thing. Like you're actually in the moment doing all of that stuff, and it's going right into the experience, right into the game.
Yeah.
What a trip.
It's really cool.
Yeah. Because we used to equate acting in games as voice acting, not to diminish voice acting, but that's what we understood about acting for games. But it's way, way more than that at this point.
Yeah, I was doing a panel with I think it was actually everyone who was nominated or had been nominated for like a BAFTA Performer of the Year award. There was 4 or 5 of us. And we were all talking about how people are like, oh, you did a video game, that's cool. Like, you do voiceover. And
Right.
yeah, again, like voiceover is a crazy, incredible art, but motion capture is also completely different. It's a combination of a few different things. And it's way more just like regular acting.
Yeah. I was out for dinner with a guy that's been directing in both, and he was equating and telling that there's still this look down the nose a little bit from some established Hollywood people about the complexities and the artistic quality of the work that's happening in video games, and sort of the maturation that's happened and the experience that's happened because of that. And I feel like, you know, that there are thresholds being crossed here where there are going to be a lot of game making directors able to make that move into filmmaking and television making, and I don't know if Hollywood's ready for that, but I think it's going to be happening.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking. Like, I remember even after the Quarry came out and it was a huge success, being like, talking to my representation and being like, this is a really good time to, you know, follow up with people and be like, hey, Siobhan was just in this thing, and they were like, yeah, producers and casting don't really care. They don't really get it.
Well,
like,
they're going to start to get it.
And I was like, are you kidding me? This like video game acting is like film and TV on crack.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be so much more prepared. You're shooting, like when we did the Quarry, I think we were shooting 40 pages a day.
Wow.
Which, you know, film and TV, you'd shoot maybe like 6 to 10.
Yeah.
And you get, like when we did the Quarry, it's like you get 1 or 2 takes.
Yeah.
And that's it. And you're not turning around and getting different angles.
Right.
You don't have the opportunity to keep improving as you go along.
Well, partially you don't need to, because it's capturing everything in 3D space and they're putting you where they want to.
Yeah.
What's your take on how artificial intelligence is going to be, you know, impacting your job, but also the develop? And I just want to hear your take on it, because there's all kinds of different ways we can approach it. But what are you feeling right now as an artist?
Yeah. You know, honestly, it's something that I've really tried to just bury my head in the sand about, I think, because I feel like there's nothing that I can do, which is maybe a stupid attitude to have. But I feel like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, if AI really takes over in a multitude of arenas, you know, from creative to whatever.
Yeah.
At a certain point, so many people are going to have lost jobs and livelihoods that there's got to be some sort of like, okay, we've got to put parameters on this.
Right.
Maybe that's naive. I don't know.
Yeah.
It is definitely scary, I think, for everybody. Like, you know, my partner is a photographer, and it's crazy to see like people coming out and all these photographs that you can no longer or the average person can't tell whether it's AI or not. And,
well, I'm seeing mislabeling as well on social media. Like Instagram is saying something is AI created or employed AI when it didn't.
Totally.
That's happening like crazy right now. It is incredibly messy.
Yeah.
I am like you. I'm very fearful for the employment and the work that is going to be impacted by all of this. But I am starting to open my mind a little bit to the utilization of AI as a tool. And something that kind of made it pop for me was George Lucas was interviewed at Cannes, and they asked him about AI, and he said, and this is a man I deeply respect because he has given the world of creativity so much technology, and has understood what technology can mean as a gateway to creativity. And he just said it's like complaining about the car and wanting to go back to your horse and buggy at this point. And that was very illuminating from an 80-year-old man that has seen it all and done it all. Yeah. And I was like, okay, all right, maybe I need to open my mind a little bit. But yeah, I think about the ramifications for sure, you know, industry-wide. But I also think that in the case of developing something like the Quarry, where you can employ AI to real-time develop scenery that you're walking around in, and I'm not trying to advocate for this or whatever, but I mean, that would be a crazy thing for you as a performer to be able to see that, right?
Sure.
If you're in a volume and it's in real time and you're not having to, you know, come back 3 months later and it's different, you know, it could happen like right there, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's so invaluable in so many ways, and it has been for a number of years. I think it's just with now that it's kind of like there's public access to things like ChatGPT, and people are starting to see, you know, like you can go into Canva. Actually, I have a great time with it, going into Canva and being like, make me a picture of a grizzly bear fighting a moose, and it just looks like the stupidest thing you've ever seen, and I'm just like,
Oh man.
you know, so I kind of have fun with it. I realize that that's also, you know, it's a slippery slope.
It is. We're
but
minutes from Roy Batty. Do you know who Roy Batty is?
No,
from
I don't.
He's the lead replicant from Blade Runner.
Oh my God.
Where they're self-aware. I mean, that's the thing. The thing that
Right.
terrifies me is
Yeah.
the inevitable, merger of OpenAI and Boston Dynamics, the robot
Right.
company. When that happens, we're doomed. That's
Yeah,
it. You know.
singularity.
And everybody seems to be racing to that, which is so freaky to me right now.
It's so funny. Like, I don't know whether to. Like, do you remember when VR, people were like
Yes.
talking about VR?
Oh,
VR came
yeah.
out. People
Yeah.
were like, Oculus is out, and like all this stuff, and it's gonna take over. Everyone's gonna be living life like through their glasses, and that was like 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and nobody's,
Yeah.
you know, like. And it was Mark Zuckerberg too. He's like, "Oh, the metaverse and
Yeah.
all this stuff. Like, it's gonna be revolutionary," and nothing's happened.
Well, I think these ideas are amazing, but they're all, about the openness of this architecture and this technology and this IP. And businesses don't work like that.
No.
Everybody's very protective.
Totally.
This is mine. You can't have it. You got to license it. You got to.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of the metaverse is a replication of what reality is, where we blend all of these IP and brands in our everyday life,
Yeah.
but it's digital. Well, how do you do that and still have trademarks? And
Yeah.
how do you give open access to all of this stuff and
Doesn't
people make
work.
money from that? You know.
Yeah, unless you have Elon and Mark and everyone else getting together and be like, yeah,
Yeah.
let's just like play together.
And they don't.
No.
Nobody does.
No.
I know. We have a long way to go with all of that. And VR technology, I think, will get there, but
Yeah.
it needs to be this. It needs to be simple and not mess up your hair and be light and affordable and
Yeah,
not easy.
for sure.
Not easy.
Yeah.
Are you into all of this tech stuff?
Not really, to be honest.
No.
I think that it's super cool, but I'm kind of old-fashioned in
Yeah.
a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And like the
Which is ironic because you're playing in some of the most high-tech playgrounds
Yeah.
and playing fields.
Yeah.
But then you escape to the outdoors and reality, right?
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And I really admire it. Like, when I am working on stuff, I love asking about what's behind the tech and learning about all that stuff. And I think it's super, super cool.
Yeah.
But more just like in my personal life, I guess I try to put limits on that and just like, be as present as I can and
Yeah.
be immersed in the natural world a bit more.
Well, I think for the profession that you have chosen, that's probably the wisest play, because what we have as a society done is we've increasingly put a barrier of a screen between reality and ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we have made it very easy to connect with the imagery of reality. But what we are looking for in our entertainments and our escapism on these screens is a reflection of reality. And if you are a conduit to that and you employ reality to get to that, it's going to make you a better performer.
Right.
Right?
Thank you. Yeah, I
And
hope so.
yeah, I mean, it's that human to human connection that I think is an invaluable thing that we're all pursuing. And I think it's becoming increasingly difficult for large corporate, media creators to find authenticity with all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really tough. I mean, if we've made everything in a volume where we don't go outside, it's amazing, right? Mandalorian comes
Yeah.
out, it's like, oh my God, look at how cool that is. And then every show has that, and it's like, oh my God, they got to stop shooting in the
Yeah.
volume.
Yeah.
We got to go back on location,
yeah.
right? I think
Totally.
there's something really profound about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this balance is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially in this all digital space and digital world.
No kidding.
So you escape to the woods. I see it on the socials and all that, which is great, and I admire it, and I'm envious of it because I'm a nerd sitting in front of my video game screen. But I do get out for walks
We
and
all
stuff.
have our things that we need to make us happy, right?
Yeah,
Everyone's
absolutely.
different.
But what else are you doing? What other things are you, putting out into the world or finding joy from? What else are you up to these days?
Yeah, I've been really using this time kind of since COVID and a little bit after to focus on music.
Yeah.
And that's been really nice because I think I was spreading myself a little bit thin, trying to do too many things, which I do a lot of.
Yeah.
I've been releasing. I released a new EP in the fall, and then I also have released 3 new songs in the last few months.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
I've heard your tunes.
Have
I've
you?
heard your music. It's awesome. And
Aw.
I'm so impressed by that.
Thanks.
And is this something you've always had and you've just recently I don't know, found the resources or the courage to be able to share it with everybody, or is this a new pursuit for you?
It still feels new, but I'm really starting to get more comfortable with it and feel like it's something that I want to do more consistently.
Yeah.
I've been writing music since I was probably about 11 or 12.
Yep.
I started just writing songs with like a Fisher-Price tape recorder that we had in the house,
Yeah.
and like a piano that I had no idea how to play, but I'd be like, I can play these 3 notes together and it sounds good. And then I'd just kind of like write stuff. And then when I turned 14, my mom bought me a guitar from a thrift shop that was like $10, a classical guitar, and I taught myself just to play some really basic chords using tabs on the internet.
Yeah.
And then I started writing with guitar and recording with my Fisher-Price tape recorder still until I was maybe 15 or 16. And then, it was just like a continuous thing that I always did. When I booked my first movie when I was 20, I used not all of that money, but some of that money to buy my first guitar, a Seagull, Canadian.
Nice. Very nice.
Brand, and I still have it. And then I just, kept writing more and more, but it was always very, very, very personal. And I would basically just write songs as sort of an outlet and a way to express what I felt was too strong to kind of express any other way.
Sure.
I dealt with depression a lot growing up, and I had a lot of like ruminative negative thoughts, as everybody does, and music was just a really good way to feel like I could get all of that out.
It's therapy.
It was really healing for me. And so I think for a long time I was really scared to put that out there because it was so personal, and I was like, that's terrifying. Like, I just write them for me. But then I think when I was around maybe like 24, I had a bank of songs, and I was like, I really want to start doing something with this and sharing it. Like, I love music so much, and I'm really passionate about it. It's helped me so much in my own life, like listening to other people's music. And so I started to work with a producer at the time, and I put out my first, I think, 3 or 4 songs, and then it was a little while. I kind of had some issues putting those songs out. The music industry is just kind of messed up, and it's not like I had a bad deal with a label or anything like that, but
it's hard to get attention, right?
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't so much the issue. It was like there was just some other stuff there, but I took a little break after that, and then worked on some more songs with another producer in Atlanta, Josh Monroy, and that was kind of like an indie rock sensibility. Yep. And then I found a new producer here because I'd been looking for someone who I really loved personally and musically and creatively. Like, there's so many things when you're working in a really intimate environment like that, and trusting someone with these. Oh, what the heck?
Dragonfly.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if those guys were mating or what, but that was kind of cool. Cameo.
We turned into the world wildlife there
I know,
for a second.
right?
That's great.
You think you're a nerd. You should go for a walk with me sometime.
Seriously, yeah.
It's insufferable. So I found this producer, Conan Karpinski, and he's a Vancouver guy, and he was in his own band called Soul Push, and he produced a lot of his own stuff, and we just like jived so well. And I was like, I want to go a little more pop and a little more upbeat for this new stuff.
Cool.
Just based on what was inspiring me and I was loving at the time. Because so much of my music previously, I'm kind of going on and on now, but
no, I want to know.
Music.
This is you. That we're finding out about you. This is great.
So much of my music before was, like I said, it was quite melancholy because that's when I felt really compelled to write.
Sure.
But I actually started listening to this one artist, Maud Latour, who wrote really happy, poppy, upbeat stuff, and I was just like, this is cool. I think I like upbeat music now, and I like pop, and I really judged it for a long time, and then I was like, I want to try that. So Conan was great, and he like really shared in my vision and elevated things so much, and so I think these new songs that I've put out are my favorite for sure.
That's awesome.
Released.
What's happened with you since you started to release the music? Have you started to get some attention that you didn't have before from people? And
I mean, one of the songs in particular has done really well. I think it's been out for like a month and a half, and it's got 50,000 streams on Spotify, which for me is a huge deal.
That's like a half a cent.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
If you could tip me after this, I'd really appreciate it. I'll like sing you happy birthday. Yeah, it's not a lot. Fortunately, it's purely a hobby for me, so that's okay. I'm not like, oh my God, what have I got to start making a living off of this? But between now and then, I have one more song to put out this summer and then one in the fall. And I've just been, doing the like content creation.
That's the thing about today. Like, we just don't know. You know, like I make a lot of videos. I don't know what people are going to watch. I don't know. You just put it out. You just have to try creating things. And I think that's true at every freaking level. I mean, we have huge movies that should be smashes and they totally bomb. And then we have things that were destined for streaming and they put them in theater and they become the biggest animated movie of all time. Like the world just has no idea anymore where people are going to find something. Look at that DJO guy from Stranger Things.
Oh my God.
Right?
Love him.
Yeah, he's great. Fantastic actor. I forget his name.
Joe Curry.
Oh, Joe Curry. Yeah, he's terrific. And
Joe, if you're watching this, you're super great.
Yeah, he's terrific. And that song is great, and you keep hearing it on the minute-long apps all the time. And then I sound like such an old man.
And what is that called? Talkie tick?
Talkie tick. You just keep hearing it, and then it's like, where's this? This is a pretty cool tune. And then you figure it all out, and it's like 2 years after he'd put it out, right?
I literally figured this out like a month ago, so I'm glad we're talking now.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. That's the world, though. We just don't know what's going to happen. So I think you just keep going, and you keep, trying new things and putting stuff out there. And, I think that's fantastic.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
And your music is great. Like, literally, I was like, holy crap, this is not a joke. She's really good. These songs are great, man.
That's so sweet.
I actually connected you with Goody Grace.
Yeah.
Who's another rock star that I know in my weird... I'm a video game nerd. I don't know how I know famous rock star people like this, but
all ties together.
Well, he's a huge nerd too. He's a huge gamer as well.
Is he?
Yeah, he used to watch EP out of. He's from the Winnipeg area, and he used to watch EP. And was a big fan. He started following me on Instagram, and I didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
And then he started commenting and connecting, and I was like, dude, this is look at you. You have tons and tons of people that listen to your stuff. And then I had him on the show too. But it is wild, and I think that's the soup of creativity now too. You kind of have to have your tendrils out. You need to kind of try different things, do some games, do some acting, do some music, and
for sure.
And it's like what I do too. I like to talk with lots of people from all kinds of stuff because it's all kind of intersecting in some ways, right?
Totally.
You had a song in the Quarry too, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, they put my song Everything in the Quarry, which is super cool.
I love that song.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Thanks so much.
Do you equate Everything as part of from your melancholy type time or your move to poppy, because it's very catchy?
Yeah, that's a funny thing that you say that, because I was thinking about this a couple of weeks ago. I was listening to it again because I don't listen to that often.
Yeah.
But I was like, this really was poppy, like in a melancholy way, and it was one of my earliest songs. And I think even then, I was just like,
it's a big tune.
Yeah.
It's a big song.
Cool.
It's called Everything.
Yeah.
It's a big idea.
It is a big idea.
And the video was like everything about it. And it's like, this is my first song. I'm like, what? That is a lot. That's a lot to put out in the world, man. That's great.
It's so funny. I am really proud of that song still. It's probably one of my favorites, and I think that I always probably wanted to go a bit more in that direction, but I also am I have a very eclectic music taste myself, and I like so many different genres with the passion. And I kind of thought, like, before I started making music, I was like, I am someone that wants to experience so many different things, which literally is like the meaning of the song Everything.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm not going to limit myself to one genre for marketing purposes, because that's like what people want, and they want to be able to predict stuff. I'm just going to write what I want.
Yes.
So if I was in the mood to write like an epic ballad like that, I was going to do it. And if I was in the mood to write like a weird 60s inspired dark James Bond kind of like creepy song, like,
that sounds cool.
I would, which is Satellite.
Right on.
I want to write like a doo-wop song or like a weird girl garage band song. I'm going to do that. And so I think I've kind of not limited myself in that way, which I'm sure is like a really bad thing from a commercial point of view.
I don't know, because we are all we're at the mercy of the algorithm in our lives. You know, we're all thinking about that. What's going to be searchable and what box can we put ourselves into? And the more I find out about it and the more advice I get, it's like nobody knows.
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
Totally.
You know, how can you know?
You can't. YOLO. You just got to do what you want to do.
I think so.
As long as you're not hurting anybody.
I think so, until the AI scrapes it and just regurgitates all of this stuff.
Like, that's my song. Wait a second. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I'm glad to be kind of going back in that direction, and I'd like to write some more. Actually, the song I'm putting out in the fall, it's not similar to everything, but it's kind of a similar, like, pop, sad ballad. So I'm excited for that one to come out. Maybe you'll like it. Very cool.
And you mentioned you were shooting a pilot. Did anything happen with that?
Sadly, no.
No.
It was an NBC pilot.
Yeah.
It was they were calling it a drama, but it was definitely a comedy.
Well, that's a problem.
Yeah, it would have been. I mean, it was starring Retta and Titus Burgess.
Okay.
So you could see that it would be a comedy.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, it was really funny. It would have been great, but that was right before the writer's strike. Writer's strike killed us.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine. It would have been really nice. But we had
have you done that sort of ramp before? Have you done the pilot thing many times before? How many have you done?
4?
Yeah, okay.
I think that was my 4th.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's tough. I think I'm ready for a pilot that gets greenlit now.
Yeah.
I think I'm ready for it.
Yeah. You know the stories, though.
Like, of how it never...
Well, you know, like, some actors go, like, 50 times.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
My manager has this one client. He's like, he's done 40 pilots, and they never go. And I'm like, great, I'm really glad I chose this career. So...
But again, I mean, that speaks to... You know, the execs don't know. The algorithm certainly doesn't know.
No.
You know, like, people decide. You know, they find it and they decide. And sometimes they're too late, and you know, and things have changed and things move on. But sometimes things come back too. Right?
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, totally. I mean, acting is, like, honestly just a terrible career choice. Like, it's awesome, and some people get really lucky.
Yeah.
And I think often if you put the time in and you have enough success, you're going to keep having success. But like, man, there can be just periods of, like, very little or nothing. And I think it's so important. I get so many people asking me, like, I want to be an actor. Do you have any advice? And I'm like, yeah, I have lots of other things that make you happy.
Yeah.
Because you're not, like, this industry does not care about you. It doesn't owe you anything. And, like, you have to be really well-rounded and, like, find other things that are consistent and, you know, bring you joy. And obviously you want to love acting and not get totally jaded, but you have to be practical about it too.
Well, I think you've got an amazing perspective on this because you appreciate all of the other facets that go into that opportunity for you to act, and you ask questions about it, and you create your own material outside of that, and you also decompress from it, and you also create in other directions. And I think that's exactly what you got to do. I mean, that's, last time we talked, I told you that was my path too. I went to acting school, I was starting to get work, and I thought, okay, well, this is great, I'll just keep going. And then, you know, the auditions weren't paying off, and it's like, well, what am I going to do? Just put all my faith in somebody else to decide if I'm going to have a living here or not?
Totally.
And that's what led to Electric Playground getting created. But I think if you know that going in and you have an appreciation for all facets, you know, and you can start to, you know, sort of feed that curiosity and build your own stuff, write your own things, collaborate with things, you'll find a path.
Totally.
You'll find a path. You'll find, and it might be different, but that's okay. Right? Look at your career. You probably had no idea that video games would be a big part of your career.
No.
When you started all this.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah, there's so many things that it can pivot to, right? If you have the right attitude, you can be like, it's not, you know, some massive failure or whatever. It's just like, oh, I can use all of that and put it into this. And maybe it can be a bonus every now and then if it happens or whatever, right?
I do want to ask, though, about staying connected to that path and being positive. What do you do? What's your secret? Because I think that's a helpful thing for anybody to hear that, you know? No matter what their passion is or what their hope is.
Yeah.
You know, I think we can hear that reinforcement from every direction. What do you do?
For sure. Yeah, not giving up and losing faith in kind of what you're doing. I I think just trying not to write things off when things go poorly, and know that something that's always really, really helped me with so many things in life is just knowing that progress is not linear. It's not something that's just like this. It's very much like this, and there's going to be highs and lows, and you can't take every low as a failure or a sign to give up.
Yeah.
And I think that if you know that something really, really brings you joy, you should pursue it no matter what.
Yeah.
And it will pay off eventually.
Yeah.
You just have to have things that I guess are long-term goals, but things every day that also make you happy.
Right.
That you can do, make yourself do to, like, you know, force your brain out of the ruts. Like for me, you know, it's going outside for a walk or something like that. It just resets. And also just finding things that keep you inspired and do give you control. Like, you know, sometimes it's easy to get an audition and be like, here's another job I'm not going to get.
Right.
But just being like, hey, this is my one opportunity to ever play this character.
Yeah.
How am I going to do that in a way that's fun for me? And, like, you know, taking a bit of that control and making it your own. Like, I know, you know, casting, especially in the city, can be very black and white. They're like, we want you to use a blue background and we want it to be framed like this. And I'm like, well, you know what's really fun for me is like setting up the scene and using my kind of cinematic lens to make it look more like a movie. I don't do that all the time, but sometimes if I really want to, I will.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
because everybody self-tapes now.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're doing it at home and you're putting it together and you're submitting that.
Yeah.
Got you.
And if I don't get the job because I did that, it's fine. That's probably not someone I really care that much to work with anyway.
Yeah.
Like, if I can't take my own liberties in that tiny fraction of control that I can have and creativity.
I've heard a couple of great things about this. I listen to a ton of podcasts and stuff, and of course I'm fascinated with acting. But one of the things, and I can't remember who said it, but their whole perspective on that audition process changed. It was not just the asking for the opportunity, that audition was the opportunity. That was the job.
Yeah.
And going in and taking that as seriously as the work, I'm going to contribute today, and that's going to be what I'm going to deliver today.
Nice.
And whatever happens is fine, but I'm taking that. I think it was Bryan Cranston that I heard that from. And I was like, yeah, that's a really, really good perspective.
Yeah.
But the other thing I think that dovetails with what you're talking about is that sometimes success is the hard job too. Sometimes when it really starts to pay and you're in the middle of the work, that can be way more than you thought of as well. And so your path is not linear is an absolutely perfect analogy, because it's not. You know, that journey is meant to be winding, and sometimes when you win the lottery, it's also really hard.
Yeah.
And then you have to almost overcompensate for that and
Totally.
over-deliver at that point too, right?
It's just a different kind of stress.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That happens to me all the time. I like kill myself, you know, trying to get work, and then you get work and it's like, yay! And then 1 minute later, like, fuck! Now I have to prep and like, oh God, what if they hate me? And like, what if I get fired at the table read? And what if, you know, like, there's all these things. Like, what if I'm underprepared? And yeah, it just changes. I always find it so stressful. And then like the first day on set, once you meet everybody and it's real and you do stuff, you're like, oh, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
But
No, it's pressure, right?
Yeah.
The whole thing is about pressure, and I think this idea of escape and having these release valves like you've created for yourself. Do you surround yourself with other artists, or do you have a lot of people that have quote unquote real jobs in your life?
It's a combination. I think my friend group is very diverse. Some of them are artists, some of them are, I'd say that they're all artists in their own way, whether it's their job or not. You know, like, I don't have a ton of close friends who are actors, but there's no particular reason for that. Artists of different types, I feel like, you know, that are into like visual art or music. A lot of them have like full-time jobs that are not in the arts, but they're still very artistic hearts. Right,
they're using the tool of art to just enjoy their life more.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty healthy too to see people that employ art in a tactical way. You know, in a way that's it's beneficial for the people that they're working with, but it's not necessarily a career advancement type thing.
Totally.
Right? And I think that's a good thing to take to set or to take into a job, you know, is to say, okay, well, we have a collaborative work to get done here. You know, it's not just about the ladder I'm rising
Yeah.
from this.
100%.
Right? And I think that's probably a healthier way to collaborate with people. But that's a hard thing to ask sometimes in Hollywood or
Yeah.
any, because one hit turns everything into a crazy kind of reality for some people out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, God, it's such a weird industry because it's really like, there's so many moments where myself and other actors are like, God, we take this so seriously and we're literally just playing pretend.
Yeah.
Like, it's so dumb. But it's also a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yes.
So there's a lot of pressure there for a lot of different people. But I think one of my favorite things about being on set is not just the acting, which I love. It's just like meeting so many different people from so many different backgrounds working together to make something awesome.
Yeah.
And like, it incorporates every kind of art. It incorporates visual art, like the cinematography, like art design, set design, music. Oh my God, what would entertainment be without music?
Totally.
Like, the art of like construction, set building. There's a lot of like very accomplished tradespeople and like blue collar workers and
Artists in their own right.
Exactly, yeah. And I just love talking to like people in every department and being like, how did you get here? What do you love about it? And everyone just seems, for the most part, to really just be excited to be there. And everyone's excited and passionate about what they do. And like, there's nothing more respectable and inspiring to me than someone taking pride in their work. Like,
Totally.
It's the most attractive thing. I don't like care what some Joe Blow off the street would think about your job.
Yes.
Like if you want to do a really good job and you're proud of what you do, like, I want to talk to you about it.
So you worked with Anson Mount on Hell on Wheels, and man, he has been crushing it on Star Trek.
Yeah,
he
no
is
kidding.
Great on it, though.
I
He
love
is
that.
so great,
Yeah.
So I'm curious if you've had any contact with him, but
No, but maybe I will after this. I should reach out and be like, hey.
yeah, he's
you're
got
good.
video games in his background too.
Yeah.
He did Evil Within.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember even just like when he got cast in Star Trek, seeing a picture of him and being like, you are the most transformative human.
Yeah.
Like going from this crazy 1860s Civil War era Western to like sci-fi.
Yeah. I do recommend you check it out and
I'll have to watch.
touch
for sure.
base with your old friend. and-
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
I will for sure.
Who is the coolest actor that you've worked with?
I mean, the one that I'm probably the most excited about would be Steve Carell.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I admire him so much, and I feel like I didn't even appreciate him when I met him because I hadn't even watched The Office yet.
Yeah.
But
And you were probably nervous as hell too, right?
I was very nervous.
That was the Zemeckis movie.
Yeah.
What was that one? I'm sorry.
Welcome to Marwen.
Welcome to Marwen.
Yeah.
And that whole experience must have been just mind-blowing.
Oh yeah, I've never
Yeah.
been on a set like that before. And Zemeckis, he's got to invent something new for everything that he
Yes.
does, right? So
Yeah.
there was like so many amazing things to see. That was such a cool experience. Lots of legendary actors on that. But yeah, Steve was so nice. It's funny, I remember I'd been watching that show, Angie Tribeca. Did you ever watch that?
No.
It's starring Rashida Jones, who's like one of my all-time favorites.
She's great.
So great.
Yep.
And this other guy, I can't remember his name, but it's so funny. And Steve and his wife produced it. I think it only went 2 seasons, but it was like a very spoofy, punny, like crime comedy.
Okay.
So funny. Like that show should have blown up. It must have just been like a wrong time kind of thing.
Again, nobody knows.
No, I know.
It's impossible to get stuff out.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
brilliant. And I remember like meeting Steve and being like, I really love the Angie Tribeca. And I think he was probably like, wow, no one ever tells me that.
That's cool.
So I think I was like, even more in awe of him because of that
Yeah.
than like all of his amazing work. But man, I'm such a huge Steve Carell fan. Like,
That's great. This was amazing. It's so good to
Yeah.
catch up.
you too, Vic.
Yeah,
Thanks so much.
and we'll definitely have you back on the show when you've got another project to talk about, and
Yeah.
when people start discovering your music and stuff. And
Thanks.
you've got a lot of irons in the fire. I'm so impressed and so happy to be your bud.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
You too. It's
yeah.
so nice to reconnect and do this.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful July day.
Yes. Thanks for watching, everybody. Siobhan Williams. Where can people follow you?
Instagram at Siobhan, or Siobhan if you pronounce it phonetically.
On Siobhan.
Siobhan. That's probably the best place. Yeah.
Very cool. And there you can find links to all of the endeavors that you've got going out there in
Got it.
video games, acting on film and television, making music as well, and lots of ways to have fun with Siobhan's work. Thanks for watching, everybody. We will see you soon. And until then, play forever.